and I posted starting a new Christmas tradition, and Beau commented, "I know what I'm gonna watch today."
That's not a Christmas movie. And my sister's like, yes, it is. And we got into one of those classic, like, is Die Hard a Christmas movie kind of things.
Welcome to Holiday Film Countdown. I'm Jamie Walter, and today we are going to Gotham.
That's right. This film is Batman Returns, our 32nd ranked holiday film. Hello, I'm Tim Walter. The Bat, the Cat, and the Penguin enter the Christmas fray as Batman Returns. Now, let's introduce our guests.
Our first guest is Beau Harris from We Love Video. Hello, Beau. Please let us know what you're drinking and give us a quick thought on Batman Returns.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm drinking a ranch water cocktail with Dulce Vida tequila. And as far as Batman Returns goes, I will say I think it's the best Christmas themed comic book movie of all time. Yes, I'm looking at you, Iron Man 3. So yeah, fun. Glad to be here talking about it.
All right. And our other guest is Joel Robertson, also with We Love Video. Hi, Joel. What are you drinking, and what's your initial thought on this film?
Hey Tim, thanks for having me. I am drinking a Fireman's Blonde Ale from Real Ale Brewing Co. And I love Batman Returns. It is my second ranked Batman movie, right behind Mask of the Phantasm. And I adore it.
Excellent.
And I am drinking a ranch water just like Beau. And my thought on it is not the typical Christmas movie that I think about. It's definitely not the Hallmark Christmas film that I might watch, but highly enjoyable.
All right. And I'm drinking a 512 IPA. We had this movie at number 32, and Beau actually reminded me about it a few weeks ago. It wasn't even in the countdown. Brought it home, took a look, and it definitely belonged. And then as the weeks have passed, it's climbed. So here it is at number 32. Obviously, Tim Burton, the cast, the score, the iconic story. So here we are.
Yeah, Batman Returns is written by Bob Kane, Daniel Waters, and Sam Hamm. It was directed by Tim Burton and is set in Gotham City, which is all decked out for Christmas. This film was released in 1992.
All right, and Batman Returns was filmed at Warner Brothers in Burbank, and filming took 8 months. Our cast, very well known. Michael Keaton reprises his role as Bruce Wayne / Batman, while Danny DeVito plays the Penguin, our main villain. Plus, Michelle Pfeiffer stars as Catwoman, a sort of anti-heroine and also a love interest. We also get plenty of evil Christopher Walken action. He plays an evil CEO, and greed is an overriding theme here. Legendary director Tim Burton goes early 90s dark in this sequel to the incredibly successful 1989 version of Batman. Other Tim Burton films preceding this one include Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Beetlejuice, again the 1989 Batman edition, which was the revival of the franchise, really going back to the 60s TV show. And then we've also got Edward Scissorhands, and I know our guests know a lot about Tim Burton, so let's get into that here.
I love Tim Burton. Huge Tim Burton fan. Pee-wee, for me, was my first introduction to him. I'm a little bit on the younger side. I was born in 88, so I was 1 when the first Batman came out and 4 when this movie came out. So they got me going on Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and then I saw a heavily cut TV edited version of the first Batman that kind of toned down the menace of Joker just a little bit, I think. Didn't have him like fall in the vat of acid and stuff. But from there, like Edward Scissorhands was huge to me. That was such like a great introduction to like the macabre look of a Tim Burton movie.
Yeah, I would say similarly. I'm a few years older, but growing up kind of a child of the late 80s, most of the 90s though, and being in like a small town, rural Texas, I was revisiting some of Tim Burton recently. And so I wanted to go back and watch some of those. And especially Edward Scissorhands has always been one that's resonated as someone who just never really fully felt like you belonged.
Absolutely.
And that apparently that was his sort of upbringing, from what I understand. Tim Burton, like, this was an outlet of him growing up in Burbank and being like, I'm this weirdo who does not belong in this pretty town in Southern California or whatever. But yeah, and then I really loved his stuff through the Batman films. I have not liked much since probably Mars Attacks in '97.
I'd say I wasn't even going to address anything
But-
after like 98.
Yeah, so it's just like I think the first half of his career is just absolutely stellar, and then yeah, it's been rough the last couple of decades, but here we are.
All right.
Let's concentrate on the good early ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can see the overall theme of in a lot of his movies of maybe I don't fit in, I'm a little bit of the outcast, trying to make my way, even in Pee Wee Herman.
Absolutely.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, well, let's check out the trailer.
A humble secretary, a charming millionaire, but every time their romance starts to flare, he gets called away on business. Newsweek magazine calls it wild, imaginative, visual marvel, funny. I saw it first. Now, while the bat's away, the cat will play. Batman Returns, rated PG-13, now playing.
Well, let's get the comments on the trailer.
Yeah. So it's really interesting how that trailer avoids showing how dark that movie is, which was a huge deal when that movie came out, right? But that looks like a fun, action-packed return to form, and it's a Batman sequel. And if I'm not mistaken, you never even really get a glimpse of Penguin in that trailer outside of him giving that speech, right?
Yeah,
So
you definitely don't see the grotesqueness
Right,
of Penguin
right.
whatsoever in that trailer.
I agree. It was a lot of Michelle Pfeiffer, which I thought she did awesome in that role. So
great.
I actually liked the trailer, even though it didn't totally project what exactly the movie is about.
Right.
But I just felt like she played all her roles so wonderful in that film. So, and the trailer definitely is a lot on her.
Yeah, for sure.
But you can tell, like, while Tim Burton might have had more creative control over the film, that's a studio trailer for sure.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like the studio came in, like, right from the sewers of Gotham, and it's like the true movie trailer voice.
And it worked.
And it
Yeah.
does, and it works. Yeah, that movie was massive.
Exactly. So that said, let's go inside the numbers. Batman Returns grossed 163 million in North America, plus another 100 million internationally, for a worldwide box office total of around $265 million. Big numbers for 1992. It cost 80 million to make. Again, incredibly high for 1992. But look at the profits. And no wonder we have this string of Batman movies continuing on through present. Batman Returns has an average Letterboxd review score of 3.6 out of 5. That's the second highest so far in our countdown. And we'll all be giving our personal ratings later.
80 million is a lot if you account for inflation now. Like 80 million back then for a budget was crazy. That's got to be one of the highest of all time at the time, right? If not
Absolutely.
the highest at the time.
I mean, it would be 160 now.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But look at the sets. Multiple. The Penguin's Underground was phenomenal. Bruce Wayne's house.
Yep.
The streetscape.
The Shrek store, the entire Shrek building had a department store, his office. Yeah.
Explosions everywhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At
Gadgets
least
galore.
a few dozen Penguin Wranglers needed on set to
So I have
turn
a
them
whole.
around.
I guess
I know Joel's gonna
I'm
get
going to
to
address this real quick. Were those all real penguins, or were some animatronics? Some had to be animatronic, and some were CGI. I assume. No, you think?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I think it's probably a combination.
Yeah, there were definitely some real ones in there, but when it showed like the whole crowd of them, my immediate thought was, how the hell did they get so many penguins, and how did they control this set that day? I looked at Beau and I said, the set was crazy.
They did it well. And penguins aren't cheap, nor is the talent.
I was going to say it's
High dollar talent.
That's true.
So
I'm assuming Keaton was commanding a pretty high paycheck to come back, right? Do we know how much he asked for or what he got? It's under 20 if it's in 92.
I don't know, but this was after Beetlejuice, so
That's fair.
it's up there. Let's go on to fun facts. Burgess Meredith, who played the Penguin on the original 1960s Batman TV series, was asked to play the Penguin's father, but illness prevented that. So if you all know, Burgess Meredith played Rocky's trainer in that series. Old guy named Mickey
That's right.
with that real grovelly voice and kind of gruff but endearing. And I could see him fitting in this movie.
So he would have been the Paul Rubens role at the beginning? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that would have made a lot of sense. As somebody who watched a lot of the Adam West Batman growing up for whatever strange reason, as a kid of the 90s, I was going back and watching that. And I always loved Burgess Meredith. Like, he was somebody who just stood out playing the Penguin, which is so, like...
Wait, the penguin from Adam West is Mickey?
No, yeah.
Yes,
That's
yes.
Burgess Meredith.
Whoa. Okay.
That's exactly
Yeah.
it.
Mind blowing.
Yeah, we gotta kill the Batman.
Yeah, wild. Okay.
Yeah, and yeah. That was a good cast, all of them. Eartha Kitt and was it Cesar Romero and all that. Yeah, I've always loved that. So that would have been a really fun, cool little Easter egg to have if help had allowed.
Also, shameless plug, original Batman premiered at the Paramount Theater downtown Austin.
Great
Wow.
theater,
The movie.
great city.
The movie.
That's very cool.
And also, I'll note that Tim Burton was originally opposed to making a sequel of Batman. So he requested increased creative control, and then it was granted, and he agreed to return and direct the sequel.
And direct it, he did. Man, I wonder, the studio had to be happy with it, right? I mean, they had to have been happy with it, with the numbers, and the controversy at that time was great. Like every kid I knew was talking about, are you allowed to watch it? Did you see it?
I mean, obviously the summer it came out, and I think I would have been 7. My older brother was 10. And we were, huge fans. I think we had already had the VHS of the 89 Batman at this point by the time this came out. And then I remember growing up with the VHS of Batman Returns after that. I remember being everywhere. We had McDonald's was just massive amount of, the plug-in and tie-in this, stuff that and that was only one of maybe 2 or 3 drive-ins we had in the entire city that I grew up in at that point, so we were there a lot. It felt very heavily promoted to us. even having our favorite ride at Astro World at Houston, where near where I grew up, the Six Flags there, Batman Escape was the ride we went on over and over and over. And it was very Batman Returns themed. It had the ducks, and it had so it felt like it was everywhere. Somehow.
I love movie tie-ins. I love them, and this movie had the most ever at the time. This was like it. Nothing ever got promoted like this.
3 years to build up.
Insane.
All right, let's talk about the setting of the story and the prompts and stuff. What do you think?
Phenomenal.
Yeah, Tim Burton's Gotham was so cool because it felt like, I've definitely, even though I might not have been old enough at 89 to remember it, but I do know that, growing up, thinking about the Adam West Batmans to the only film we'd seen is Superman with, Christopher Reeve. And so this is the first time where you just went dark and gothic in a whole world that felt wholly created.
Mm-hmm.
And brought to life by such unique production design. And I think that return to Gotham in this one feels somehow just a little darker and a little weirder and that type of thing. So it definitely built upon that first one.
I almost wonder if the bringing the Christmas iconography into it makes it feel more menacing, because we know there's something afoot, and there's all this stuff that we identify as wholly positive put over this very gothic architecture. We know something's brewing.
What should be the happiest time of the year suddenly has
I felt that.
Yeah, it's
big contrast.
Yeah, it's almost like an
Chekhov's
intentional
gun.
Right. The whole thing feels intentional to make Christmas feel almost like another character in the movie. It's interesting.
So what do we think about the trees, Christmas iconography? Anything there particularly stand out?
Go ahead. I guess
I just the one thing that they never had were reindeer. We saw a snowman. They referenced Santa multiple times. There was mistletoe, spoken and sing.
Big time mistletoe.
Yep. Elves. I'm gonna say that some of those things at the beginning in the costumes were supposed to look like elves. I felt like some of the clown people were supposed to look like elves, right? They had the jingle hats on and stuff.
Rating the lighting scene
Right.
when they were lighting the tree.
Yeah, decorations everywhere. The whole movie's decorated with Christmas stuff, it feels like.
And those trees were well done.
Yeah, they're huge, they're awesome.
Yeah, going back to what we were talking about, how it made it feel like almost it was so gothic, but then it was like this Christmas thing, putting it back on. At the beginning of the movie, the Christmas tree, the house, everything with the baby was just beautiful, right? The snow scene, the fireplace, everything was picturesque. And then you realize what's going on. And then also at the beginning, when they're getting ready to do the lighting of the Christmas tree with the mayor there, it almost reminded me of a New York scene, because they had the window display that they showed real quick that you see in New York. Of course, the big Christmas tree lighting that they also do. So I don't know, it was kind of like the beauty, and then that's about how much.
Right.
All right, so let's get into the cast and the characters. So we've got Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. Let's look at him. He was, at this point, known for Night Shift, Mr. Mom, Beetlejuice, huge, and then the first Batman. What are your thoughts on Michael Keaton?
Yeah, I think, and having just re-listened to some other podcasts in the Beetlejuice era, it was interesting to think about him as solely this guy from Night Shift, Mr. Mom, and his appearances on David Letterman, because I guess they were buddies and he'd show up and do these stand-up bits. And the world just knew him as a comedian, as a comedic actor. And when they wanted to do Beetlejuice, I guess they wanted Sammy Davis Jr., someone who was a big performance, song and dance type man. And Tim Burton pushed for Michael Keaton, which I assume probably led very quickly to Batman, which a lot of people were like, up in the air about when it was first announced. Like, this is not
The
Batman.
Bruce Willis and Die Hard effect,
Yeah,
right?
and it was just like people had some very different idea from comic books in the world, you know. And then of course he comes in and crushes it so much so that it becomes such an iconic figure that by the time you get to Batman Returns, it's just like he is Bruce Wayne, he is Batman. He's created this whole, you know, which fit perfectly in the Tim Burton universe.
I was there, and I'll have to admit, he didn't seem to be Batman to me before I saw that first movie.
I can believe that, man. Because
Yeah,
why would he?
absolutely.
Why would he? You had no reason to think that that was the same reaction we all had to Heath Ledger's Joker
Exactly.
and all that. You know, it's very much of what? The guy
Yeah.
from 10 Things I Hate About You? Come
Yeah.
on. Yeah. No, it makes sense. I think it's very telling that we've had 3 movies with one of the best modern actors playing Batman and Bruce Wayne. And we still think of Michael Keaton in most circles as like the penultimate Bruce Wayne. And like, I just, he's so charming in this. It's ridiculous.
Ben Affleck didn't surpass that for you.
All right, since we've gone there, you have any Batman rankings or least favorite, or let's
Like,
go
like of Batman people or of the films?
of the film since 1989.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. Like I have to put something like The Dark Knight a little higher personally. You know, age or situations might have changed that a little bit, but it's hard to say these aren't up there, like at the top tier. The Tim Burton 2 and Michael Keaton and Christian Bale being such different Batman, but you know, so perfect for their individual movies, and neither would have worked in the other. You know, I like to say Christian Bale is one of our greatest living dramatic actors, but he doesn't do comedy. The funniest he's been is American Psycho. He's never done a real true comedy, whereas Michael Keaton has that range, and why you can maybe never go to the depths of like how far Christian Bale can take dramatic, and so that's why it works for their films. And I think that's what's beautiful about the whole thing is just how different they all can be in these different iterations.
Okay, and then you mentioned Ben Affleck. Any thoughts on George Clooney, or don't even go there?
I thought George Clooney made a good Bruce Wayne in
terrible Bruce
theory, like, but just not a great Batman. Like there was just something that he was like, he's just too. Yeah, he can play the smarmy rich guy. I buy that.
He kills it. I actually think he's
never
great as
questioned-
Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, I never questioned that. But yeah, the suit and what they did with the film, I don't think it's his fault. Yeah.
Okay, and then Danny DeVito. So he plays Oswald Cobblepot, the child born different than his parents expected, let's say. And let's talk about Danny DeVito real quick. So he was in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Taxi, long-running, very popular, successful television sitcom. Terms of Endearment, if you remember that. He was wooing Shirley MacLaine's character. And then Throw Mama from the Train had come out just before this, and that was a big hit.
It was a childhood favorite of mine, honestly. Throw Off from the Train is a good movie. It's maybe not a good movie, but
Also, Danny DeVito appeared earlier in our countdown. He was in
Deck the Halls.
Deck the Halls,
Oh no.
number 48.
I believe it.
Yeah,
It's generous.
Just he did.
It was almost honorable mention, but it snuck in there. Any thoughts on Danny DeVito? I thought he did a great
He's
job.
incredible in this. He's so good.
Yeah, for what they want him to do, which is this crazy, grotesque, absurd character. I mean, yeah, he comes in much like Michael Keaton talks about Beetlejuice when that first started, where he's like, I'm going to come in and I'm going to take it to this crazy extreme, and I expect them to tell me to pull it back, and nobody did, so I just kept going.
Yeah.
And it felt like Danny DeVito probably had a similar thought of like, all right, I'm going to try to go too far and make them pull me back, and nobody did.
There are
And this is what we
moments.
got.
Yeah, it's crazy how like he really is kind of allowed to do whatever because there's no archetype to his character that he needs to follow. He's not even a penguin. He's just a disfigured kid who got sent up the river a la Moses and is now like living underground with animals. But what's nuts about it is there's moments where you sympathize with him in a real way. He like when he's talking, you know he's not being completely real. You know that he's putting on a little bit of a show, but you do feel bad for him. His parents abandoned him. You can't help but feel a little bad for this ugly, short little guy, you know?
He could have been a good person.
He could have been.
You can see that, and Batman sees that.
Yeah. And the wild thing for me watching it this time was because I already love his performance. I just kind of was letting it happen. He physically is acting like a penguin so much subtly. Like even when he falls at the end and he's like he looks like a penguin who fell over. It's ridiculous, but it works.
It got me in an interesting thought during this time. Is the first time I really had a deep dive into who specifically found him, because he knew the exact year, how old he was, how many, that type of thing. And then, but he seemingly raised with penguins So did I don't know if I've missed something specific where it's like, I know there was like this whole like circus in town subplot. So it's like, they around, but they're not anymore, or or these his army,
I thought
like,
his army was the freak show people that
Yeah.
that were missing.
but were they like the kids of the ones who actually found him 33 years
That's
earlier?
all good.
Because none of them seem old enough to have been an Alfred figure.
It's very true. Yeah,
Like,
no.
so I was like, maybe there was something cut out because it's 2 hour and 6 minute movie. It's
So I have an idea on that.
okay.
There's a gentleman in the film. The actor's name is Vincent Schiavelli.
Yeah.
And he's this 6'4" guy with the dark eyes. He's been kind of a typecast character actor over the years.
Yeah, Scrooged is the other
Scrooged.
one I know from that's probably on your list.
Oh yeah, and he was also in Night Shift with Michael Keaton. He was in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Danny DeVito. He was in Taxi, so they knew him. He's listed as in credits as the organ grinder, and he's the one driving around that train with the monkey.
Yeah, he also had the little
Right.
Tommy gun.
Okay, yeah.
And he
That's
looks
very
older
first
than 33.
attack.
That's
So
fair.
maybe he's Alfred or the
Yes.
Guardian.
Also, I think we're maybe thinking Danny DeVito is older than he is, just because he's always looked a little older than he is.
Right. Well,
This
that's
is
the film
40.
said 33 years later.
Oh,
when
yeah,
the
you're
baby
right.
thing happened.
Great.
So
That's a great point.
Okay.
he's
so
basically
33.
33.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So yeah, I think that's that.
I could
makes
see
sense.
that.
That's
Yeah.
my theory, and I'm going with it.
I could see that, honestly. Yeah.
I thought his costumes were just incredible. I mean, you were talking about how he moved a little bit like a penguin. When he jumped back into that duckmobile at the end, it was like he didn't have legs, like he just kind of
He
rolled
flopped
his
in.
body.
I noticed that as
I was
well,
like,
yes.
yeah, like a penguin, of course. He doesn't have legs, and just the absurdity of how his body looked. And it was almost like, if you thought about it, like a toddler's pajamas, onesie or
Yes.
something,
Yes.
going back. So I thought that was interesting and pretty cool.
All right, so Michelle Pfeiffer, what do we think?
Yeah, she's great. 10 out of 10, no notes.
The title of her character was Catwoman, but her alter ego was Selena Kyle, and she has this ongoing interaction with Bruce Wayne. And let's just get a little bit of background on her. She was mostly a TV actor at first, but then she got a role in Grease 2. Horribly panned film, looked back upon a little better than originally.
The only Grease I've seen. I'll
Maybe.
admit it.
Maybe because of her. She was in Scarface. Dangerous Liaisons before this was a big film, and she killed it.
You glided right over the Fabulous Baker Boys. I love that one.
I saw that one too.
Yeah, Bridges Boys.
Love her.
But yeah, I mean, 1992, Michelle Pfeiffer at the height of everything: talent, beauty, just charisma.
She's so funny in this.
Yeah. The humor is. You're right. The comic timing, all of it's
Yeah.
amazing.
At the beginning, like the Selena Kyle character it's a lot goofier than I remember. They have her written very like, but she's great. It's funny, it's cute, it's charming. You definitely don't want Max to kill her. Like that's a wild step for him to take.
Her screen time was darn near the same as Michael Keaton's in this film.
I believe it.
I mean, they're right on the same.
Smart call. Every time the movie jumps back to her, it's almost more entertaining than when it's focusing on anything else in the movie.
And I think a lot of that was true with Jack Nicholson too.
Yeah.
It surprised the other day when I rewatched that Jack Nicholson had top billing, then Michael Keaton, then Batman.
Makes sense.
Title. So I
That
was
era.
like, and then watching the movie, I was like, I think he might be in more of the movie than Batman, or close enough to it. It feels like it.
It's interesting because even though they dropped the ball with Batman and Robin, Forever, for all of its faults, I feel like it's Riddler and Two-Face equally get that kind of attention to detail and love in the film as Joker and Catwoman and Penguin get in these first two. I know that movie has a ton of detractors, and that's totally fine. But I think Forever is actually an okay Batman movie, but mostly because of those two central villain performances are really fun, and they take center stage.
Yeah.
And like once you bring in a Robin and a Batgirl and a Bane and a Poison Ivy and a Mr. Freeze, it's all too much. But for that, I like that. The way those first three focus on the villains.
Yeah, and just a quick aside on the villains that I thought about during this for the first time ever was the parallels between the two villains, where these were very animal focused. They had herds of their animals that almost seemed supernaturally attached to them. And then then you get to the next one where it's like completely jaded, riddle speaking Two-Face and the Riddler. So there's lots of crossover there. And then the third one, Batman and Robin, suddenly you have this woman and Poison Ivy trying to save the rainforest, and Mr. Freeze trying to cool the planet, and I'm like, what, are these environmentalists? So
Also-
it's kind of strange how these parallels happened in these films.
Was this the first movie to mention global warming? And like, that caught me so off guard when he said that. Penguin goes, "What about global warming? How about global cooling?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Whoa, hold on." Yeah,
It had to be up there.
that's got to be like one
In
of
the timeline there.
Yeah, very wild. Al Gore saw that movie and was like, "We got this."
And also, Bruce Wayne doesn't appear in this movie until minute 45. Just
Wow.
something I noted. Batman was there, but we didn't see Bruce Wayne for a while. And Christopher Walken as Max Streck, the evil CEO. We know him from The Deer Hunter, Blues Brothers, and a recurring role on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Christopher Walken's just he comes in and does what he does better than anyone in the world. He's the Daniel Day-Lewis of doing his one thing.
And he may not be acting.
I don't think he is acting.
He's just saying words at different inflections. You know.
I truly believe that I would never want to run into Christopher Walken ever. Like, not in a dark alley, not in a brightly lit room. No, I love him. He scares me to death.
He seems like a sweet, thoughtful guy, though. When you listen to him in interviews and talks, he's a song and dance man.
Sure.
I mean, he's, like, yeah, but I think he just has there's just enough like creepiness behind his eyes and his voice, his cadence specifically to just make him, able to play these roles. So great.
It kind of struck me how similar he is in this to his role in True Romance, which was, I believe, probably shot at the exact same time.
Pretty
right
close.
around each
Yeah,
other.
True Romance 93.
He's still walking, and he's still very got that very menacing dialect, but he's pulled back a lot more from the character Christopher Walken that we know today. It feels like a lot more grounded than even Pulp Fiction Walken, which is already a lot more exaggerated.
In a film when so many people are going so big,
He
he
goes
really
small.
did actually kind of keep it contained. It was similar to Jack Palance in the first in '89 Batman, where they just kind of had oh, you have to be a little bit more restrained so that the rest of this seems zany and outrageous.
Do we think that the reporter in this was supposed to be him again?
No, Jack Palance.
Oh, wait.
City Slickers, Jack
Oh,
Palance. He
yes,
was,
sorry.
more of the mayorish type, like that situation, not Keith or David Keith, who was the reporter.
Yeah, the reporter in
I
this
thought
one
he
felt
was-
like he was trying to be the reporter from '89, but I wasn't.
Well, let's move on to some scenes. What do you think is the funniest scene from there? Bo, what do you?
Oh wow, the funniest. I don't know funny scenes as much as there were moments that were funny. I think more than anything that linger with me was speaking of lingering, like the first time Batman sees Catwoman and they're in the middle of this fight. People are dying in the streets with machine guns and whatnot, and he just stops and stares in her eyes for about 12 seconds. And it's like, people are dying, dude. This is your job. You're the guy. And then he leaves, and she goes, "Well, that was brief." And I was like, "Was it?" I think it should have been a little more brief while the guns are going off. But there were just things like that throughout that I just caught moments more than anything. But Joel, I don't know, a scene stand out to you?
I didn't actually catch any full scene that was funny, but I did write down, why does he DJ scratch the CD? Because he puts a CD on that has the sounds and he starts going on it, but it doesn't make the music do that. It just shows him doing that.
I think that whole scratching thing had just emerged and
It
they just
must
wanted to
have,
play
right?
on it.
I loved that. I loved that. That was great.
Yeah, I've got a sappy scene. It's when the Penguin visits his parents' grave.
It's a really good scene.
Okay, you're like, I feel a little sorry for this penguin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he brought the roses and he lays them down.
I mean, I felt sorry for him from the beginning.
Yeah,
but
it's-
And the
that
Roses is a
bothered me.
callback to the '89 because that Batman
remember
did
the
that at the
roses.
theater where his parents were shot in the back of. He goes and
Great
lays
call.
2 roses.
Great
And
call.
Vicky Vale, the Kim Basinger, comes and sees the roses and then starts putting pieces together. So it is an interesting callback to
It's a
give
tie-in, yeah.
to give
Callback.
Bruce Wayne that sort of relation to this character.
Since you brought her up, did I miss it, or do they not mention Vicky?
No, I do think that's exactly when you stepped out. So he is when they're on their first date, which I made a note of is really funny because he does the same thing with Vicky Vale and in this movie where the first time this beautiful wavy blonde-haired woman that he's attracted to is like, please come to a first date at my house and have dinner in both movies. And I was like, why is that your move? You have this big creepy manner. They don't know you. You got to give it off a little creepy vibe. Take her to a coffee shop or a restaurant in town in a public place first.
It's worth $1
But they
billion.
both-
Dude.
Yeah, they both go for it. So interestingly enough, but during that date, he starts to unveil some of the unveil the Vicky Vale stuff.
What does it hint at? Is she dead? Did she leave him?
No, yeah, she left.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer says something like, "Did you try telling her the truth?" And he's like, "I did, but there are two truths," and it's a whole moment where he's like, she couldn't reconcile it.
Interesting. Okay.
Hey, girlfriend?
Sure. Oh, you mean, as in serious? No, had one, didn't work.
What went wrong? Hang on. I think I know. You kept things from her.
No, told her everything.
Huh? And the truth frightened her?
Well, there are two truths. You know, and she had trouble reconciling them because I had trouble reconciling.
Yeah, unlike most like a James Bond movie where like the female
Right.
vixen is just replaced in the next movie and nobody explains why.
Who's Denise Richards?
Yeah.
Never
Did
again. I
actually-
know.
Yes. Yeah.
I found it interesting when after she died, Michelle Pfeiffer, and she was getting attacked by the cats, and then she turned into the Catwoman. She goes back to her apartment and she starts spray painting black and tearing everything up. I'm like, okay, let me think about this for a second. You know, just portraying that, okay, I'm changed. I'm not this cute little woman. Like her apartment was like cute, it was all
Mhm.
pink and everything, and she started bashing everything and spray painting everything black.
She was going all in.
Yeah,
She
it's,
was.
it's a great, that's such a great moment. And the hell here sign is so, like, that's an
Yeah.
iconic, like, Batman Returns thing, right? I feel
Yeah.
like when I think Batman Returns, I think Penguin, hell here, lots of people dressed up as Catwoman for Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even I found some of the specific choices she made to destroy her apartment a little like cheesy. Like individually, I'd be like, I feel like there's a more efficient way, or this is a weird thing to focus on before like sitting down to sew your suit. But it worked because you needed that ramp up for her to finally then sit down and be like, I'm gonna sew this suit and become this person. But
Yeah.
that like I remember writing into like just from her death to resurrection to that moment was what exactly are her powers? Because it seemed like she could not be killed during
She just
her
has 9 lives, I think.
But then
right?
she
Yeah,
suddenly had the extreme gymnastics,
Yes,
the
acrobatics.
ability
That's true.
to like do some stuff that I was like, were the cats did something supernatural? Where did that come from? If that's how that worked.
Are we supposed to maybe assume that if cats were people, they would just be that agile? I think they've turned
Yeah.
her into just a cat.
Right.
And that's her power. She's literally just Catwoman.
Yeah.
Which you said this a minute ago, but the only reason I know this is because this morning I watched a behind the scenes about this movie in preparation for this. There was a lot that he didn't want to that Burton didn't want to come back and do, and what convinced him to come back and do this was the idea of it being this animalistic thing, 3 animals pitted against each other.
Yeah.
With the bat, the cat, and the penguin. That's why he leaned into that for all the marketing. Yeah, so I think maybe she's just supposed to be human cat. She has 9 lives and she's very agile. She gets very worried when she's about to get hurt, it seems like, through most of the movie. She
Yeah,
seems-
like a cat actually falling
Right.
does seem scared, even though it's going to land on its feet and be fine.
Right.
But it's scared the whole time it's falling. So yeah,
the claws
you're right.
come out, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But by the way, claws. Did
What
I
were
miss them? What was it?
What was it?
What was it? It fell off at one point, right?
Falls off multiple points. She
Multiple
even
times,
comments
okay.
on losing one of them.
Right.
She goes, "Oh damn!"
They're like it's like a
supposed to be-
thimble. It's like a thimble with a spike that I feel like is a specific type of sewing
That's what I was wondering.
device where maybe like you start thread with it or something.
Okay.
Or like
Like
you
the
start the
needle
needle. Yeah,
thread?
you have the needle. Yeah, pushing it through the thread.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe there's something there.
What happened to her arm? When they're making out, he pulls back her arm,
Oh.
and it looks like a
He threw-
lion.
during their
attacked her.
first fight, he threw acid on her arm to like he had a little blue acid thing on his belt, and
Ah.
it was like
I was wondering that too.
yeah, it like melted
Okay.
her. And that's why at the end of that scene, she's like, I forget
Okay.
what she says, but
Okay.
something about him.
So they both had something to hide.
Exactly, yeah, because he had the stomach puncture.
But there's a part where a penguin breaks open some toxic waste and he pours it out and he says, "This is from your textile factory." Is that the factory Joker falls into? The vat of acid, is that the toxic waste that burned Joker? Was that the implication? That was the first time I'd ever even noticed that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't notice a like Shrek's or name or anything like that on the first.
Yeah.
On the last '89
Yeah.
watch. So, but
So
maybe
Shrek was into power generation and textiles.
yeah.
Just a conglomerate.
Yeah.
And
That-
owned a sporting goods store apparently
No,
that she destroys.
And it goes automotive sporting goods in
Yeah.
one. It's all on one shelf. There's like I definitely clocked that there was nothing on that shelf that you would actually need. It was like a hockey stick and a muffler.
Yeah. Before moving too far away from Michelle Pfeiffer and Kim Basinger, I heard this anecdote the other day that I don't 100% know is true, but I guess Michael Keaton in the mid 80s had a bit of an affair with Michelle Pfeiffer when he was still married, and she was cast as Vicky Vale in the first Batman '89, and he was still married at the time, still trying to reconcile. He got married or got divorced in 1990. And so by the time this movie rolls around, not a big deal anymore. And yeah, so like I said, the on paper stuff lines up that it could be true, but that was a fun fact I've never once heard before in my life.
Here's a fun fact. Tim Burton's dating Monica Bellucci right now. Monica Bellucci plays a very prominent role in Beetlejuice.
Yeah, he puts girlfriends
Every
whoever
single
he's
one.
dating
And
in-
I think this is just Burton's calling card, I feel. Yeah. He's
That's
been,
old school.
yeah, he's been doing this for a hot minute.
All right. And then memorable scenes. You all have any memorable scenes?
I don't want to bring it up till we get to Parent Guide, but the end will always stick out to me. It's so graphic for the end of a Batman movie. It feels like I love the ending. The whole climax with them underground in the sewers is great.
Mhm. Yeah, and I like there are so many good things about that whole like sewer standoff. You got Christopher Walken, you got it's your whole big cast is down there. I did clock one moment that I thought was interesting was I always think when I see Batman he goes to put on all his outfits, and then when he has his mask on, which we never watch him put on, he always has like dark eye makeup clearly around his eyes before he puts the mask on. And then I would think the mask comes off without ripping it, or he'd have to just keep making masks every single time. So then when he finally has that big moment where he rips it off for Catwoman, and A, why does it tear apart and create this turtleneck situation? And B, there's zero eye makeup whatsoever. And I'm like, wait, what? And so it's just supposed to be a suspension of disbelief, I guess, because I'm sure there are people on set who are like, hair and makeup people alone were probably like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And then a scene I remember watching it for the first time, I actually saw this movie in theaters,
Yeah.
was when the Batmobile narrows and fits through that little opening.
Yeah.
That scene was pretty,
Yeah, it just like the car becomes this skinny, like little hot dog of a vehicle.
it was pretty into the future
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah,
You got to
'cause
remember
it
where we were
looks-
in 1992. That was a big effect.
It looks practical in a way that, wouldn't normally exist back then. They did make it feel, not sure how they did all of these things, but it felt really practical in a way that probably was just like of its time. Probably felt stellar to watch.
I think we recovered relatable, like where the penguin comes relatable when he's, talking about how I just want to know why my parents left me. Why did they have to choose that? I think we already covered that. So
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, everyone had some level of relatability, I feel like. I mean, even Christopher Walken felt at moments where he's like trying to protect his son, like at that threat of his own life. And
Right.
it's just like no one felt so far gone that they were so irredeemable that you like hated them. You're like, oh, I get where they're coming from and why. And they could be pulled back if needed be or something. So
exactly.
yeah, I think that film did a good job of walking that tightrope.
All right. So let's go to quotable lines. Does anyone have any quotes they want to bring up? I have one.
I like when Michelle Pfeiffer says, I don't know about you, Miss Kitty, but I feel much yummier now. She's in her outfit. I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah, quotable lines, Joel, anything? I'm sure you got a few.
It really threw me off when I'm not going to say the word, but she says the P word, and
right.
that threw me off big
Or,
time.
yeah, when the penguin says
Oh,
it to
does he
her.
say it's her? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. That threw me off big time. But yeah, that was probably the thing that stuck out to me most this time.
Double entendre.
Yeah, man.
Lives forever.
Yeah, they got a few of those. She goes,
Oh,
she's
yeah.
rubbing his body and, mentions semi-hard as well. And you're sort of like, wow, this is
a
pretty
lot.
risque. Because I do not, obviously as a kid, I'm
Missed
not
all
getting
that.
all
Went
that.
right
Missed
over
it
your
all.
head.
Yeah.
But that's how they used to make the films, that I feel like they do less of that now.
I like the Penguins line. I was their number one son and they treated me like number two.
That was a really good one. That was a really good one.
That was clever.
Yeah.
I liked when the Joker said to Batman, you're just jealous because I'm a genuine freak and you have to wear a mask.
That was really good. That was
Like,
really
awesome. All right. Well, then we can get into the moral of the story. Any thoughts?
Mhm.
Wow.
good. Is the moral to this story.
Yeah.
Some freaks are good. Some of them keep them in the sewers.
This is the count. Is this the counter to Wall Street? Greed is bad.
The corporate greed, the power.
Where the hero is still a billionaire. I feel like it's hard to get
All right, good
around
point.
that.
True.
So maybe the moral is there are good billionaires and there are bad billionaires.
Eat some of the rich. I don't know. I feel like this one does seem like it's trying to get, like, the first one really is just a fun superhero movie with the basic like moral of it should
Yeah.
be good.
But you
to
see the
people.
two opposite sides of the same coin,
Yeah.
which Batman and Joker have always been.
That's fair.
And so I think that's kind of the idea, is that could one change the other. And so this one just felt a little bit like a build upon that, but at the same time, yeah, I don't think it was anything too overt that we're supposed to take away from like the moral.
I do want to point something out that I never noticed. At the beginning of the movie, when they put him in, when Penguin's parents put him in the bassinet, is that what it's called? And they floated down the river. It's extremely reminiscent of the biblical story of Moses, down to the like waves woven and everything. Later on in the movie, he says he's going to kill all the firstborn. That's also a direct biblical reference. The entire movie is taking place at Christmas. There's something, I think he was intending some sort of like, but I'm not 100. I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure what the through line is on all the religious allegories, but it's there. I noticed it this time, but
Well, ancient stories get pulled from all the time. And
fair. That's fair.
That's normal as a writer or a director, right? You're going to pull from what's been written before.
I noticed it for the first time with this though, and it does feel intentional, especially with the killing the kidnapping, I guess, the firstborns in this. Yeah, he feels like he's on a holy mission almost. The Penguin, right? He's got this holy goal, even if it's not truly a good goal.
Okay, and that kind of leads into hot takes. So I have one in that, along with War Games, is this an OG hacker film? Because Batman jams a signal and then basically hacks the hordes of penguins with the rockets strapped to their bodies.
He does.
That was a hacking enterprise.
They have CDs that have full, like, they're putting everything on CD in this movie also. Did you notice that? He's using CD.
It was
I
that
think
time.
I think you're onto something with that.
There might be others, but there weren't that many hacking movies yet.
We were still in the era
1992.
of Jurassic Park. I'm in. I know the system. Like, we were very, very still stupid in that regard.
There's a semi-hacking scene at the beginning of Die Hard at the front desk.
Oh, wow. I like that.
All right, let's get into the parent guide then. It's rated PG-13. What are your takes on that? Appropriate?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I obviously saw it at such a much younger age than that, so it's hard for me to argue.
I don't think it should be rated R. I
Yeah,
definitely,
agreed.
I think this was a massive controversy at the time. And a lot of it stems from the fact that this was, again, the most marketed, like heavily promoted movie of all time. And the first one's not violent. The Joker stuff is freaky, I think, for kids. Like he is kind of freaky, and there are a lot of like violent moments in that movie, but they're fun. They're more whimsical, right? This is like kind of everything. It's always night in this movie. It's never daytime ever in this movie. There's never any like relief from it. And you said while we were watching it, the music doesn't stop. It goes and goes and goes. It's a very pulsating sort of soundtrack behind it. My parents were not stoked about this when it came out. They were very bummed out that so they did not let me go see this in the theater. I was so upset. And then the second it came out on video, my kindergarten teacher brought it in and we watched it the day it came out in kindergarten. And she got a ton of trouble for it.
That's awesome.
But she was great. And so from there, they can't stop him. He's already seen it. So
Do you remember her name?
I do. I'm not going to say her name because she's still friends with people in my family. But
I didn't want you to say it. I just wanted to know if you knew it.
I do, and I respect it.
That's great. She knows who she is.
Yes, that's right. Interestingly enough, on the marketing thing, this movie is the reason why if you see, which you won't see much of anymore, but if a movie that's rated anything over PG gets promoted at a fast food restaurant or on like a gas station cup, at the very bottom in fine print, you'll see, please consult the ratings. This film is rated PG-13. The only reason that exists is because of this movie and the fact that you could get French fries in your kids' meal that had the penguin on it. And so parents were like, yeah, this must be for kids.
That's great. Hey, that's a legacy.
What do you, I mean, not being parents, what do y'all think as parents?
Well, I'm just curious. So you think because of the violence and the scariness of it, that's why it's PG-13 and not just PG?
I think that's got more to do with it than the sexual stuff in the movie, but it would have still copped the PG-13 regardless because of that, right? Like,
right, I guess. I mean, I can see why it's PG-13. I think as a parent, your child, and maybe some kids can handle it and some can't.
Right.
Particularly one of my children, one of my three, would have wanted to watch it much younger, and I probably would have let him because he didn't get scared that easily, and loved the superhero movies. And so I don't find it all that bad, but I guess it's a good call to rate it PG-13 just because it would be hard if you're putting the movie on and you're letting your child watch it. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, this is way too much for the kid. So
I think for 92, it was also just way more intense than it would be now, right? With like every movie's PG-13 now. Like I feel like
True.
kids don't even want to see a PG movie.
True.
So this was was like maybe I think just a product of its time. I don't think parents would have too much of an issue with
Yeah.
it. now.
Not post Marvel.
No, not
Yeah,
at all.
definitely.
Yeah,
So
no.
the innuendo, I think, goes over their heads until they're probably about 13.
Yeah.
And at that point,
Right.
they're ready for
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Where they've
totally,
got
totally.
their phones and they're dialed in already. Let's go on to the soundtrack. As Beau mentioned, and Joel also, we had music throughout.
Yeah.
Danny Elfman composed the score. He was the lead singer and songwriter from Oingo Boingo, an 80s new wave band, and then in the mid 80s he moved into soundtracks, although he was never trained classically, so he was a little intimidated by moving into that role, but he did it. He's very closely aligned with Tim Burton and then branched out in later years all the way until current times. He worked on everything from Good Will Hunting and Men in Black to more contemporary Silver Linings Playbook and 50 Shades of Grey. He's worked on over 50 films, and that constant music in the background kind of took me back to when we first had really good sound in our houses to go with our TVs. And you would sometimes pick a film based upon the sounds and the effects and even the music.
You're speaking my dad's language.
It brought me back there.
Yeah, having just rewatched both Beetlejuice and Batman '89, and now this, I mean, just what Danny Elfman did with those 3 scores in a row is just
Insane.
outstanding. I mean, you feel it the whole time, and yeah, there's not much more I can say positively about how great his score writing is during this era.
This is the only Batman movie that doesn't have a pop song attached to it, at least of the original 4. This is the only one.
'cause Prince did
Prince
Batman
first,
'89 and then Seal.
Seal,
Yeah.
Smashing Pumpkins, or R. Kelly, depending on who you talk to.
There was a
Batman and
U2.
Robin. There is a U2, the Kiss Me, Kill Me, Thrill Me.
Mhm.
Yeah. This is the only one. I noticed that there was not a single actual pop song. There was no music in this at all outside of the orchestral score, which is interesting.
There's a little part at Shrek's Big Party where they're playing Susie and the Banshees, or Susie from Susie and the Banshees, and it's the song Face to Face. I somewhat recognize it. And we only had 2 traditional Christmas songs, O Come All Ye Faithful and I Saw 3 Ships, and they were just instrumental and virtually uncredited. So that was it. You look at the soundtrack and it's like 4 lines of soundtrack. Most of these holiday films have 25, 30, or 35 songs in them, so very different.
Thought you wanted to
Oh,
add
no,
something.
I was just,
Okay.
oh, Come All You Faithful threw me off too, because it pops up pretty late into the movie. And I wrote, is this the first proper Christmas song? Yeah. And it's the only one until the next. Yeah. Interesting.
All right, well, Beau, if you had to rate this movie 1 to 5, 5 being the best, what would you rate it, and tell us why?
Yeah, so I was gonna say the Letterboxd score. Yeah, my mind went something like 3.5. I would say it's I don't know if it quite reaches the 4 or above in my book. Just going back and watching some of it, it's not perfect. It's got some cheesiness, and I thought a few like just kind of cringy humor moments that weren't bad, but I liked them as a kid. But in hindsight, yeah, I think 3.5.
I think I'm gonna go 4. I don't think there's ever been a 5-star Batman movie. I'm not sure if that exists yet. I think Dark Knight probably gets closest, but I would put this, for me it would be Dark Knight, this Mask of the Phantasm, like very close together in that ranking. I think this is there, but I'd go 4. Yeah.
I think I'm happy with the 3.5. I think it would go there just because it was very entertaining, but there were some scenes that felt a little long, maybe. Could have been a little cut back for me. The movie was pretty long, but overall good.
Yeah, I'm going to go diplomatically 3.8. It's when I look at the list of these 50 and line them up, I've got to have some 5s at the top and some 4.5s. We've got our 2.1s. Talking to you, Deck the Halls.
Yeah, believe
But
it.
3.8, we'll go with that.
I like that.
All right, well, Beau, would you recommend this to someone maybe who hasn't seen it, or if you're talking and like what
Yeah,
audience
Tim
would
in
you-
the video store when it's looking for holiday movies.
Already proven fact.
Yeah. But yeah, anybody, same thing. I was talking to my mom and my sister on Christmas last year. We were all in different cities for Christmas, and they're like, what did you watch? And I was like, when we get together, we always watch the same sort of like Christmas Vacation, and like you have these like Christmas Story, and a lot of these like homesteads that my mom very much like insists on watching. So being at home for Christmas Eve this year, I was like, I actually did Batman Returns, and my mom's like, that's not a Christmas movie, and my sister's like, yes it is, and we got into one of those classic like, is Die Hard a Christmas movie kind of things. So I think it's just a lot of that is like anytime someone's like looking for an outside the box Christmas movie who might not remember that it's so heavily Christmas themed, it's like my first instinct.
And you, Joel, who would you recommend it to?
Everybody should watch this movie.
All year?
All year. So, funnily enough, last Christmas I had just met Beau. We had back in July of last year, and I went to visit my folks, and I had their big 100-inch TV, and I was like, oh, let's put something cool and Christmassy on. And for some reason, I said, let's Batman Returns it. I've never done that before. And I posted starting a new Christmas tradition. And Beau commented, I know what I'm going to watch today.
That's great.
So we've started this Batman Returns being a Christmas movie thing very recently. And I'm going to recommend this to everyone every Christmas.
So we've got an evangelist here.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think, again, it's not the typical Christmas film, but I think knowing how our Christmas usually goes, we have a house full of guests. So my sister and her family come, and then Tim's family lives here in Austin, and we always host Christmas at our house. And so I personally feel like all ages, because we have a kid range of nieces and nephews, and we have 3 kids. So I think it gives a little something for everyone. So
Totally.
I would definitely recommend people to watch it, especially if you're doing a Christmas family movie night and you want something different. I'm tired of watching the same ones every year. Let's do something different. I would say, hey, Batman Returns.
Yeah, I would recommend it to just about anyone, particularly folks who have a little edge to them and want just to look at it a little differently. There are little pops of Christmas in there to keep you going through the holiday. I don't know if I'd recommend it to my grandmother, and I don't know if I'd recommend it to, maybe a child who tends to have issues sleeping or something. Yeah,
That's fair.
because they couldn't do some of that. But it's pretty wide open, and there's no part where I have to run out of the room or distract everyone for a scene.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, other
that's
than
right.
Penguin's teeth sometimes.
Wait, okay. What was up with that? Sometimes they're fully rotten. Sometimes they just look sharp. And then at the end, they were white. I can't be the only one who noticed that when he bit that dude's face at the end, his teeth were white.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's Batman's makeup. They
Yeah.
only have enough money for one each day. So it's like, are we going to do the teeth or Batman's eyes?
And then he had braces part of the time. Didn't it look like he had
Yeah.
braces?
When he eats the fish, he has something attached to his
It
teeth.
looked like
yeah.
bracelets to
Interesting.
me.
There was something going on with his mouth in that. That's disturbing.
So what is your favorite holiday movie, Beau?
Oh, crap. I forgot this question was coming. Joel.
No. I forgot
right.
to.
Think for a second. There's so many.
I mean, it's tough. I'd say, there's the absolute most rewatched is probably A Christmas Story. I mean, that movie, it's 24 hours and play it every single day. It's back. In the 90s, they started doing that before we had so many DVDs. But our first DVD that we owned of Christmas movies was National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. And that was my mom's favorite. So that was on every year. And that'll always hold a soft spot in my heart for sure. And then, I don't know. I have to think there's another one of like the classic ilk. I mean, it's hard to not say like It's a Wonderful Life is one of the best ever made.
Yeah.
But like I don't know that I want to rewatch that movie the way I rewatch these broader comedies.
Yeah,
So,
fair enough to say.
And you, Joel, what's your favorite?
It's hands down, it's Home Alone, but it's Christmas Vacation is just knocking right at that door right behind it. I don't think it's okay. I think when you're picking holiday movies to pick the most cliche because they're so good.
Yeah.
Home Alone and Christmas Vacation. I don't think I can make it through a Christmas without those.
Oh, I see that.
Yeah.
You can pick them up at any point, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was well said. You're right. It's okay in a holiday film
Yeah.
to pick the most cliche. I like that because I feel that way myself.
That's what this countdown's about, a lot of cliche.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and that's okay.
absolutely.
Like good movies are good movies.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything that you would like to promote?
Oh, I know you mentioned at the beginning, but we're both involved with We Love Video here in Austin, a nonprofit 501c3 entirely volunteer-run video store that rents DVDs, Blu-rays, VHS tapes, and has a 25-seat micro cinema in the back. So any chance I get to promote that and promote the hard work of all the volunteers there, I always love taking an opportunity to do that.
And you, Joel? How about you?
Absolutely, we love video, and I have an Instagram account called Moving Picture House. You can find me at Moving Picture House on basically any social media platform. We talk about movies 24/7. I also sell shirts and other silly wares on there, so you can find me doing that all the time.
Wonderful.
And then hopefully by the time this is out, we will have a nice little episode run of a podcast that I created right before COVID and had to bring it down, but it's called Critics on Tap, and it's a fairly similar vibe to about 4 of us sitting around having drinks, watching a movie with a live audience, and talking about the film afterwards. So hopefully Critics on Tap is up and you can go find that.
Wonderful. We'll be watching for it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for joining this discussion of our 32nd ranked film, Batman Returns. Please like, follow, and comment.
Yes, please share and spread the word about Holiday Film Countdown. Thank you, Beau and Joel, for joining us. And thanks to all of our listeners. Next week, we're moving on to our 31st ranked holiday film, which will take us back to New York City.